All right, so are you ready to like really dig into William Wordsworth?
Yeah, let's do it.
It's going to be like we're in one of those awesome English lit discussions,
I love
but
those.
like way more chill, you know?
That's
We got
where,
all this cool stuff to work with, excerpts from his famous poems.
oh yeah, like Tintern Abbey.
Exactly.
I wandered lonely as a cloud.
Yep, we've got those.
Some background on his life and what he believed.
Uh-huh.
And even some of those thought-provoking questions they use in Socratic seminars.
Yes,
To really get us thinking.
I love those questions.
Me too.
It's like they make you see things in a whole new way.
It's not just about analyzing the poems, though, right? It's about
Right.
exploring these big ideas about nature,
Yes.
memory.
Yeah, creativity.
And those are like still so relevant today, you know?
Totally.
Okay, so let's jump right in.
Okay.
This first group of questions,
Yeah.
they all have this theme of nature being like a moral compass,
Mm.
which is huge in Wordsworth's work.
It really is. One of the first things we're asked to think about is how Wordsworth's relationship with nature changes over time.
Right.
And we can see this really clearly in Tintern Abbey.
Oh, absolutely. Tintern Abbey is perfect for that.
So in the poem, he's going back to this place that was like super meaningful to him when he was younger.
Yeah.
And it's like this trip down memory lane makes him think about how nature shaped him.
Yeah. It's all about those memories and how they connect to the natural world.
Exactly.
He talks about how he used to have this almost like ecstatic connection with nature.
I love that word, ecstatic.
It's perfect, right?
Yeah, it's like he was totally absorbed in it,
Totally.
running through the mountains, following streams wherever they led.
Yeah, just completely immersed in nature.
I can almost feel that youthful energy when I read those lines. It's like he was just soaking it all in.
But now, years later, it's different, isn't it?
Totally.
His connection to nature feels more...
What?
I don't know how to describe it.
I know what you mean.
It's like,
More grown up.
yeah, more contemplative, maybe
Yeah.
more spiritual even.
Mm.
It's less about the immediate thrills.
Right.
And more about the deeper lessons and insights that nature offers.
That's a good way to put it.
It's like he's realizing that those early joyful experiences were actually shaping his morality,
Wow.
his sense of right and wrong.
And that leads us to this like really deep question.
Okay, what is it?
What is that line? Nature never did betray the heart that loved her.
Oh, wow.
Suggest about nature's trustworthiness as a guide for human morality.
That's a good one.
It's like one of those lines that just stays with you.
It really does.
Like he's saying nature is this constant, steady presence you can always rely on.
Yeah.
Like a rock in a stormy sea or something.
Unlike human relationships, which can be so messy and unpredictable,
Oh, totally.
nature is this unwavering source of truth and guidance.
But here's a question for you.
Okay, shoot.
Do you think that idea of nature as a moral compass still holds up in our modern world?
That's a tough one.
I know, right?
It's such a different world than the one Wordsworth lived in.
So different.
But I do think there's something about his message that still resonates with people today.
I agree.
I mean, we're all searching for some kind of grounding, right?
Yeah.
Some sense of meaning and purpose in our lives.
Totally. And maybe nature can still provide that,
Yeah.
even in our crazy tech-filled world.
It's like an antidote to all the chaos.
I know when I'm feeling stressed or overwhelmed, just taking a walk in the park can make a huge difference.
Me too.
It's like hitting the reset button.
Absolutely.
Okay, so there's another question here about the solitary reaper.
Oh, the solitary reaper.
It asks about how the song of the reaper actually becomes part of the natural world. That poem is one of my favorites.
Mine too.
It's so haunting and beautiful.
And what's interesting is that Wordsworth doesn't actually tell us what the reaper is singing about.
Oh, that's right, he doesn't.
He focuses on the sound of the song,
Yeah.
the way it blends with the sounds of the field,
The wind.
the bird.
It all just melts together.
He even says he doesn't understand the language she's singing in.
But that doesn't make the song any less powerful for him.
Right.
It's like he's saying that sometimes the most profound experiences are the ones we can't fully grasp or explain.
The ones that just wash over us and evoke this sense of awe and wonder.
Exactly.
And that's what makes the poem so powerful.
It really does.
It invites us to experience the beauty and mystery of the natural world without needing to overanalyze it.
I love that.
Just let it be.
Okay, now let's look at I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud.
Okay.
There's a question here about solitude and its connection to experiencing nature.
Right.
That poem is all about those moments of unexpected joy that we stumble upon when we're alone with our thoughts.
Right, it is, isn't it?
Wordsworth is wandering around feeling kind of lonely, and then bam, he comes across this field of daffodils.
Fluttering and dancing in the breeze.
Yes, and that image just stays with him long after the experience itself has passed.
It's like a gift.
It is.
A gift that keeps on giving.
So later, when he's feeling down or vacant, as he puts it,
Right.
the memory of those daffodils comes flooding back.
And fills him with joy.
It's like he's tapped into a secret source of happiness that he can access whenever he needs it.
I love that image of a secret source of happiness. Me too. He's so beautiful.
And the poem suggests that sometimes the most meaningful encounters with nature happen when we're alone.
When we're able to really soak it all in without distractions.
Exactly.
Just us and the natural world.
Okay, so we've been talking about these really personal, emotional experiences with nature.
Yeah.
But there's a question here that asks about Wordsworth's views on society as a whole.
Okay.
Specifically, why he believed that rural life offers a clearer moral vision than urban life.
Ah, that's interesting.
Right.
This gets into some of the beliefs that shaped the entire Romantic movement.
Okay.
Wordsworth felt that the rapid growth of cities was corrupting human nature,
Interesting.
separating people from the simplicity and purity of the natural world.
He saw the city as a corrupting force.
In a way, yeah.
Oh.
He actually states that people living in rural environments are less under the influence of social vanity and therefore possess a more emphatic language of feeling
Okay.
that allows for a clearer moral vision.
Wow. That's a pretty strong statement.
It is.
I mean, I can see where he's coming from, especially considering the pollution and social problems that were emerging in cities during his time.
Right.
But I'm not sure I totally agree that city life automatically equals moral corruption.
I hear ya.
That's complicated, right?
Yeah, and it's important to remember that Wordsworth was writing from a particular perspective,
Of course.
and his views might not fully apply to our modern world.
Totally.
But I do think there's something to be said for the idea that spending time in nature can help us to reconnect with our values, to simplify our lives, and to tap into a deeper sense of purpose.
I like that.
It's like hitting the reset button on your soul.
Exactly.
All right, we've got one more question in this group. It asks us to analyze the quote, "To me, the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears."
Oh, wow.
From Ode, Intimations of Immortality.
That's one of his most famous lines, isn't it?
It is.
And it speaks to the idea that even the simplest things in nature can spark profound contemplation and emotion.
It's like he's saying that the divine, the spiritual, is accessible to us through even the most humble aspects of the natural world.
We just have to be open to it.
Exactly.
And this quote is particularly interesting because it comes from Ode, Intimations of Immortality.
Right.
A poem that explores the loss of innocence and the passage of time.
So it's not just about the beauty of nature.
Right.
It's about how nature can remind us of our own mortality,
Wow.
prompting us to confront deeper questions about the meaning of life and our place in the universe.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here.
We have.
Exploring how Wordsworth viewed nature as a source of moral guidance.
Inspiration.
Even spiritual insight.
But there's so much more to unpack.
I know, right?
Let's dive into our next group of questions.
Yes.
Which focus on this fascinating interplay of memory, emotion, and poetic craft in Wordsworth's work.
Oh, I'm so intrigued by that.
Me too.
It's like we're getting a peek behind the curtain to see how the magic happens.
I love that.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Okay. So ready to dive into the heart of Wordsworth's creative process.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
These next questions are all about how he saw memory and emotion as the key ingredients in his poetry.
Oh, this is so cool.
Right.
It's like we're getting a sneak peek
Let's
into
say-
how he made these amazing poems.
Exactly. And one of the first things we got to unpack is this idea of emotion recollected in tranquility.
Whoa. Emotion recollected in tranquility.
I know, right?
Sounds pretty deep.
It is.
And what's
that all about? So Wordsworth believed that for a powerful emotion to become poetry, it couldn't just be raw feeling.
Okay.
He said it needs to be revisited later when the mind is calm and reflective.
That's interesting.
It's like you need some distance.
Yeah.
Some time to process those intense emotions before you can really shape them into art.
So it's not just about pouring your heart out onto the page.
No, not at all.
It's about taking those raw emotions and transforming them into something beautiful and meaningful.
Exactly.
Like turning grapes into wine or something.
I love that analogy.
It takes time, care, and artistry to create something truly special.
Absolutely.
Okay, so how does this idea of emotion recollected in tranquility play out in a poem like Tintern Abbey?
Well, think about the structure of the poem.
Okay.
Wordsworth is literally going back to a place that holds deep emotional significance for him.
Right. He's standing on the banks of the Wye River.
But he's also traveling back in time.
Ooh, I like that.
Revisiting the memories and emotions he felt during his first visit.
So he's like layering those past emotions onto his present experience.
Yes, exactly.
Creating this rich tapestry of feeling and reflection.
And through that process of recollection, he's able to extract deeper meaning from those experiences. He's not just remembering what happened.
Right.
He's understanding how those past moments shaped who he is in the present.
That's so powerful.
It really is.
It's giving me chills just thinking about it.
Me too.
It's like, that's the whole point of poetry, right?
I think so.
To take us on these emotional journeys and help us connect with our own experiences in new and meaningful ways.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Okay, speaking of emotional journeys, let's turn to Ode.
Right.
Intimations of Immortality.
Okay.
There's a question here about that line. The things which I have seen, I now can see no more.
Oh, that's a good one.
And how it connects to this romantic idea about childhood and the divine.
Right.
That line is so heartbreaking, but also so beautiful.
It is.
It speaks to that feeling we all have of losing some of the magic and wonder of childhood as we grow older.
Yeah, we all feel that, don't we?
And for Wordsworth and a lot of the Romantic poets, childhood was seen as this special time.
Okay.
When we were more connected to nature, to the divine, to a kind of instinctive wisdom that we tend to lose as we become adults.
It's like kids just see the world with fresh eyes.
Yes.
Without all the baggage and cynicism that we adults tend to pick up along the way.
Exactly.
And this loss of that innocent vision.
That dimming of the visionary gleam.
Yes. That's something that Wordsworth really grapples with in his poetry.
So what's he saying about that lost connection to the divine?
Does he think it's gone forever?
Yeah.
Well, Ode, Intimations of Immortality, is a complex poem.
Okay.
With lots of layers of meaning.
I can imagine.
But one way to interpret it is that although we might lose that direct, unmediated experience of the divine as we age, something of it stays with us.
Like what?
Like a shadow or an echo
Yep.
that we can access through memory, through poetry, through our connection to nature.
That's actually kind of comforting.
It is, isn't it?
Like, even though we can't go back to that childlike state of wonder,
Right.
we can still tap into those feelings.
Those glimpses of something larger than ourselves.
Ooh, the power of memory and imagination.
Exactly.
It's about finding ways to keep that spark alive.
Yeah.
Even as we deal with all the complexities of adult life.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's go back to Tintern Abbey for a sec.
Okay.
There's a question here about how the act of revisiting a familiar place after 5 years symbolizes the relationship between memory and emotion in Romanticism.
This is a really important point.
Well,
because it shows us how Romantics viewed memory as more than just a passive process of recalling facts.
okay.
It's an active force that shapes our emotions and our understanding of the world.
So for Wordsworth, going back to Tintern Abbey isn't just about reminiscing about old times.
No, it's about actively engaging with those past emotions.
Interesting.
Using them to understand his present experience and even to discover new layers of meaning in the landscape.
He's not just observing the scenery.
Right.
He's layering his memories onto the landscape.
Exactly.
Creating this like rich tapestry of past and present.
Oh. And through that process, he's able to see the place with fresh eyes.
Wow.
To appreciate its beauty and significance in a way he couldn't have done before.
Like those memories are enriching his present experience.
Yes.
Adding a whole new dimension to his perception.
Exactly. And that's what's so powerful about memory.
What is it?
It's not just something that happened in the past.
Right.
It's a living, breathing part of who we are in the present moment.
Okay, let's move on to I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud.
Okay.
The question here asks how the memory of the daffodils, they flash upon that inward eye, reveals his belief in the transformative power of memory.
That line is pure magic, isn't it?
It is.
It perfectly captures the way a memory can suddenly transport us back to a particular time and place.
Yes.
Flooding our senses with the emotions we felt in that moment.
It's like those daffodils are more than just flowers.
Right.
They're a symbol of joy
Beauty.
and kind of spiritual awakening.
And the fact that he's revisiting them through that inward eye, his imagination, suggests that memory for Wordsworth is not just about passively recalling the past.
It's about actively shaping our present emotional state.
Exactly.
It's like he's created a mental library of joyful memories that he can access whenever he needs a mood boost.
I love that.
It's like a mental photo album filled with happy snapshots.
I love that analogy.
And that's what's so cool about Wordsworth's poetry.
What is it?
He shows us how to find joy and beauty in the everyday.
Yes.
How to cultivate those positive memories so that they can sustain us through difficult times.
Absolutely.
All right, let's switch gears a bit and talk about the solitary reaper.
Okay.
This question asks why Wordsworth chose to leave the meaning of the reaper's song ambiguous. Does it suggest that imagination is more important than factual knowledge when it comes to experiencing beauty?
Yes, the mystery of the Reaper song.
It's one of the most intriguing parts of the poem.
It is, isn't it?
I'm always curious about what she's singing about.
Me too.
But I do appreciate how Wordsworth focuses on the feeling the song evokes,
Yeah.
rather than trying to figure out the literal meaning.
It's like he's saying that sometimes not knowing, leaving space for mystery actually makes the experience more beautiful.
It lets our imaginations run wild.
Right.
To create our own stories, to connect with the emotional heart of the poem in a more personal way.
He's inviting us to experience the song through our senses, through our emotions, rather than getting bogged down and trying to understand every word.
Sometimes it's okay to just let the beauty wash over you
I agree.
without needing to analyze it to death.
Exactly.
Okay, the next question asks about Wordsworth's view of the poet,
Okay.
and specifically this quote from his prose piece, "What is a poet?"
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Poets have a greater promptness to think and feel without immediate external excitement.
Whoa, that's a mouthful.
I know, right?
But it's such a fascinating way to describe the poetic sensibility.
It really is.
It suggests that poets have this heightened ability to tap into their inner world, to find inspiration and meaning, even when there's no external stimulation.
It's like they're always tuned into a different frequency,
Yes.
picking up on subtle nuances and emotions that most people miss.
And that sensitivity allows them to see the extraordinary in the ordinary.
Right.
To find beauty and meaning in the everyday moments that most of us just take for granted.
It reminds me of that saying, the poet sees the world with the eyes of a child.
Oh, I love that.
Like they haven't lost that sense of wonder and curiosity.
That's so true.
And I think that childlike sense of wonder is what allows poets to connect with those universal emotions that resonate with all of us.
I agree.
Okay, let's move on to a question that brings us back to Wordsworth's beloved nature.
Okay.
It asks how he uses nature as a metaphor for memory and emotion.
Oh, this is a rich topic.
There are so many examples of this in his poetry.
So many.
It's like he sees the natural world as this giant, living, breathing metaphor for his own inner world. So it's not just about pretty descriptions of trees and flowers.
No.
It's about using those images to convey deeper truths about human experience.
Precisely.
For instance, in Tintern Abbey, the way he describes the landscape reflects his own emotional journey.
Right.
The steep and lofty cliffs.
The waters rolling from their mountain springs.
Even the wreaths of smoke rising from the trees.
It all evokes a sense of grandeur.
Mystery.
And a kind of haunting melancholy.
That mirrors his own feelings about the passage of time.
Exactly.
And it's not just in Tintern Abbey. In
Right.
Intimations of Immortality, he uses the changing seasons.
The blooming and fading of flowers.
To symbolize the cycles of human life.
The loss of innocence.
The bittersweet process of growing older.
It's like he's taking these very specific, concrete images from the natural world and using them to illuminate these larger abstract concepts about human existence.
That's so clever.
It really is.
And it makes those poems so much more impactful.
Absolutely.
Because they're working on multiple levels. You can appreciate them for their beautiful imagery.
But you can also delve deeper and find these profound reflections on the human condition. That's what makes Wordsworth such a masterful poet.
He really is.
He's able to seamlessly blend the personal and the universal,
the concrete and the abstract,
to create these layered, multifaceted works of art
that continue to resonate with readers centuries later.
It's amazing.
Speaking of the personal and the universal,
Yeah.
There's a question here that asks how Wordsworth balances his deeply personal memories with themes that resonate with everyone.
Especially since he said in Emotion Recollected in Tranquility that poetry should evoke universal emotions.
Right.
This is a great question.
It really is.
Because it gets to the heart of what makes Wordsworth's poetry so enduring.
Okay, so how does he do it?
How does he achieve this balance?
Yeah.
Well, I think he does it through a couple of really interesting techniques.
Like what?
Well, firstly, he chooses experiences that, while personal to him, tap into emotions and themes that are common to all humans.
Okay.
The joy of connecting with nature, the pain of loss,
The longing for something transcendent.
the fear of mortality.
These are all things that we can all relate to,
Right.
regardless of our backgrounds or beliefs.
It's like he's taking these very specific moments from his own life
Yeah.
and using them as a springboard to explore these larger, more universal truths about the human experience.
And secondly,
He uses language that is both specific and evocative. He grounds his poems in concrete details,
the sights and sounds of the natural world.
vivid descriptions of particular places.
But he also uses those details to symbolize broader concepts and emotions.
So even though he's writing about his own personal memories, he's doing it in a way that invites the reader to connect those memories to their own experiences.
It's like he's offering us a window into his soul. But at the same time, he's holding up a mirror to our own.
I love that.
He's inviting us to see ourselves reflected in his words.
To find our own meaning in his poetry.
Now, here's a question that's going to make us think a little deeper.
Okay, hit me with it.
How are memory and emotion connected to the sublime in poems like Tintern, Abbey, or Ode, Intimations of Immortality?
Yes, the sublime.
Such an elusive concept.
I know, it's been fascinating artists and philosophers for centuries.
It's all about experiencing something so vast and powerful
That it transcends our ordinary understanding of the world.
it evokes a sense of awe and even a touch of terror.
It's like feeling small and insignificant,
Yeah.
yet strangely exhilarated at the same time.
And for Wordsworth, those experiences of the sublime were often triggered by a combination of sensory perception memory and intense emotion,
It's not just about seeing a beautiful landscape.
or recalling a powerful memory,
Right, it's about how those things interact.
to create this overwhelming sense of awe and wonder.
For example, in Tintern Abbey, the landscape itself,
The steep and lofty cliffs,
the dark sycamore,
cool waters rolling from their mountain springs.
all of that definitely evokes a sense of the sublime.
It's like those natural features are just imbued with this inherent grandeur and power.
That makes you feel small and insignificant in comparison.
Right, but it's the way those sensory experiences are filtered through the lens of memory and emotion.
That really elevates them to the level of the sublime.
So it's not just about the scenery.
Yeah.
It's about the memories that those sights and sounds evoke,
The feelings of awe and wonder.
but also the melancholy and longing that come with the passage of time,
It's like all those emotions are swirling together.
intensifying the experience of the sublime,
Exactly. It's like a symphony of perception, memory, and emotion.
all building towards this crescendo of awe and transcendence.
Beautiful.
And an ode, Intimations of Immortality, the sublime is less tied to a particular place.
And more connected to the idea of a lost connection to the divine.
That fading of the visionary gleam that he experienced in childhood,
Right. It's that feeling of longing
of searching for something that we can't quite grasp.
that evokes a sense of the sublime.
It's like he's reaching for this memory of a state of pure wonder and connectedness, a time when the world seemed apparelled in celestial light.
And even though that direct experience has
The
faded,
very act of remembering it
of trying to capture its essence through language.
becomes a sublime experience in itself.
Yes.
It's like he's tapping into something vast and mysterious within himself.
Something that transcends the limitations of language and rational thought.
And that's what makes Wordsworth's concept of the sublime so intriguing.
It really is.
It's not just about grand landscapes or extraordinary experiences. It's about finding those moments of heightened awareness
the profound emotion and insight.
that connect us to something larger than ourselves,
Whether that's the beauty of nature
the power of memory.
or the mystery of the divine,
And those moments can happen anywhere, anytime.
if we're open to them.
Okay, and now for the last question in this group. It asks how Wordsworth's focus on imagination, especially in poems like The Solitary Reaper or I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, challenges the idea of poetry as merely descriptive.
This is a key question.
Why?
Because it gets to the heart of what makes Wordsworth such a revolutionary figure in English literature.
He was part of this movement called Romanticism, right? Which was all about pushing boundaries,
Celebrating individuality.
championing the power of imagination.
He wasn't just trying to write pretty poems about nature.
I was trying to change the way people thought about poetry itself.
Exactly. Before Wordsworth, poetry was often seen as primarily a descriptive art form.
Focused on accurately capturing the beauty of the world through language.
But Wordsworth argued that poetry was so much more than that.
He believed that it was about feeling, and transforming our experience of the world through the power of language.
It's like he's saying that poetry isn't just about observing the world passively. It's about actively engaging with it.
Shaping it.
Interpreting it through the lens of our own imaginations.
And in poems like The Solitary Reaper and I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, he shows this principle in action.
He doesn't just tell us what he sees and hears.
Right.
He uses those sensory details to create a mood.
To evoke emotion.
To spark our imagination.
And invite us to experience the world through his eyes.
In The Solitary Reaper, he doesn't even understand the words of the song.
But he's still deeply moved by its beauty and mystery.
It's like he's saying that true art doesn't need to be explained or understood.
It just needs to be felt.
Exactly.
And in I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud, it's not just about the visual beauty of the daffodils.
It's about how the memory of those daffodils continues to inspire and uplift him.
Long after the experience itself has passed.
He's showing us how to find joy and beauty in the everyday.
How to hold on to those precious moments and let them nourish our souls.
By emphasizing the role of imagination in poetry.
Wordsworth wasn't just innovating a literary form.
He was contributing to a broader cultural shift.
That was reshaping the way people viewed the world. And the role of the individual in society.
Wordsworth wasn't just a poet.
He's a visionary.
A revolutionary.
Who helped to liberate poetry from the constraints of mere description.
And elevate it to a realm of imagination, emotion, and transformative experience.
Wow, that's incredible.
Inspiring, isn't it?
It makes me want to go back and reread all of Wordsworth's poems with fresh eyes.
Me too.
I'm sure I'll discover even more layers of meaning now that we've talked about these questions together.
I think we all will.
All right, so we've talked about nature, memory, imagination.
Mm-hmm.
But how does all this Wordsworth stuff connect to us today? You know, like in the 21st century.
That's the question, isn't it? Like, one of these questions asks if his whole idea of nature guiding morality still makes sense in our world.
I mean, yeah, we're so plugged in, so tech-focused. Yep. It's easy to feel totally disconnected from nature.
But people are still reading Wordsworth, centuries later. There's got to be a reason.
True. Maybe there's something timeless about what he's saying.
Maybe deep down, we still crave that connection to nature, even if we don't realize it.
Maybe we're starting to see the downsides of being so detached.
Like climate change, right? Environmental disruption.
And even all the mental health stuff that comes with being online all the time.
Exactly. So we're coming back to those things Wordsworth was all about.
Like what?
Simplicity. Taking time to just think.
That sense of wonder and awe.
Yeah, and he wasn't saying ditch your phone and live in a cave.
He just wanted us to find ways to bring nature back into our lives.
To make space for it.
Even small things.
Like a walk in the park.
Totally. It's like a mental reset.
There's a question here about how Wordsworth portrays the sublime in nature, those landscapes that just blow you away, like in Tintern Abbey.
Oh, yeah, I love those descriptions. Mm-hmm. Steep and lofty cliffs. It's like you can feel the power of nature jumping off the page.
Right. The sublime, it's about encountering something so huge, so powerful, it goes beyond what we normally understand.
It's awe-inspiring.
A little bit scary, even.
Wordsworth always found that in nature, didn't he?
It was about connecting to something way bigger than himself.
A source of, spiritual understanding.
Moral guidance, too.
So, in today's world, where do we find that sense of the sublime?
I don't think it's about huge landscapes anymore, necessarily. Maybe it's about those little moments of awe.
Like what?
A crazy sunset. A flower, if you really look at it close up.
A real connection with another person.
Yeah, those can all be sublime if you're open to it.
So it's about being aware, noticing things, letting yourself be amazed.
Exactly. Now, there's this question about God and nature in Wordsworth's work. To what extent does he see nature as divine? And how does that connect to his idea of nature as a moral teacher?
That's interesting. His poems are so full of reverence for nature. It's easy to see why people might think he's saying God is in everything, like a pantheist.
Yeah, some of his language definitely points in that direction. Remember in Tintern Abbey where he talks about nature as a presence that rolls through all things?
Right, and there are other lines where he uses words like guide and guardian. Pretty intense stuff.
But some scholars argue it's more of a general spiritual feeling, not tied to a specific religion.
Like he's pointing to something bigger than us, but he doesn't want to define it too strictly.
So it's up to the reader to bring their own beliefs and experiences to the poem.
Which is why his work is still so relevant, I guess.
Yeah.
He makes us ask our own questions about spirituality, about life's meaning, our place in the universe.
Absolutely. Okay, last one. This question is about sound. How does Wordsworth use sound in his poems to make those moral and spiritual points about nature?
Okay, so in The Solitary Reaper, there's the Reaper's song, right? It almost becomes a part of the landscape.
Blends with the wind, the birds, it's mysterious, harmonious.
And he doesn't even understand the words, but he's still so moved by it. It's like the song shows how connected we are to nature, even if we can't explain it.
And then in Tintern Abbey, he talks about silence, like those quiet moments in the woods, the stillness of the evening.
Even the silence in the sky at night. It's pretty cool imagery.
He's saying sometimes we need to quiet down, not just our ears, but our minds, really listen to what nature's telling us.
Become more aware. Open ourselves up to those subtle messages. So what's the big takeaway here? What does Wordsworth have to say to us, even now?
I think he's reminding us of things that are easy to forget. The power of nature to help us, to heal us, the importance of memory, imagination, the beauty and the wisdom that's all around us if we just pay attention.
It's a message that we need now more than ever. Maybe it's time to put down our phones, get outside, reconnect with ourselves, and remember how to be amazed by the world.
That's a great place to leave it.